Greetings, hello, welcome, willkommen. It is I, it is me, it is Aus Void. And we have not done a Tale from the Void in some time, so I thought to myself, you know, today is as good a time as any. So what I'll be telling you about today is my experience with the Jehovah's Witnesses. So you may know them from knocking on your door at inopportune times. I, however, know them from directly seeking them out. I went knocking on their door for a change, how about that? Our story begins, to give you some context as to how I came about doing this. In my first year of university, I entered as a psychology major, and during that time I studied other things like social science and philosophy and astronomy, and I came to conclude that my heart and my mind had no interest in studying psychology. What I really wanted was philosophy, so in order to switch into studying philosophy as a major, I had to switch schools. It wasn't offered as a major at my school. So going into my second year, I was at a new school, new town. I got there a week early, didn't know anybody, so in order to keep myself busy, I was on the topic of religion at that time in my studies. So I thought to myself, you know what, I'd really like to seek out some of the non-orthodox religions and to see what else is around me. So I came across the two that I went to visit were the Jehovah's Witnesses and Scientology, but we'll save the latter for another discussion. But it's exactly what you think, we'll say that. That is, Scientology is exactly what you've heard. So the first one I wanted to get into was the Jehovah's Witnesses, because I knew the very least about that. So rather than, you know, Googling it and learning about it that way, what I thought would be a lot more interesting would be to hear about it from the horse's mouth itself. So all I did was I thought, well, maybe there'll be a location, a church where I am. So I searched it up, found a number, and it turns out they don't have churches, they have kingdom halls. And I found a kingdom hall in my town. So all I did was call the number listed, a really nice lady picked up the phone, and I basically just said, hey, I'm a student, I just got here, and I'm looking to learn more about the Jehovah's Witnesses. And she said, you know what, are you free tonight? And I said, yes. And she told me they're having a meeting, they called them, at the Kingdom Hall, and that I was more than welcome to go there and have a sit-in. She even offered to take me there. That is, for me to pick her up and she'd meet her husband there, so I wouldn't feel uncomfortable going in by myself, so that I'd have someone accompanying me. So I thought to myself, well, a little church lady, she can't be too threatening, so so I went and picked her up and sat with her on the ride, discussed very light topics like my academic history, my interests, and she was very, very sweet. She was one of those people, there's just very, like, a lightness about her, very, very light, like, just very easy to sit with, easy to talk to, very non-menacing. She was just a little older lady, and so it was. Very pleasant drive. We get there, and I had actually worn, I thought it would be, I mean, I never really wear skirts, it's not really my thing, but on that occasion I was like, well, maybe to appear as more stereotypically feminine, I should wear a skirt. So I wore a skirt that came just to my knees, and walking into that room, I didn't realize that they were so modest. I mean, I figured they'd be modest, but I didn't figure, like, floor-length dress modest, but that's what it was. So my knees felt very attacked. Knee! But that's okay. I was like, my bad. I should have known that knees were not a thing that should happen in this room. Besides the point, we sit down, she gives me her Bible, she says that she'll get another one and I can just have that, and the Jehovah's Witnesses read from something called the New World Transcription, the New World Holy Scriptures, it's New World something, and I have a copy of it somewhere. So we're sitting there and I'm trying to adjust, like we sit down, and it's a full room, like there's probably, oof, like it's not as big as a church, but there's probably at least in that room, probably about, I'd say maybe like 60 to 80-ish people. Like there's quite a few people there, all different ages. There's older people, like elderly people, middle-aged people, teenagers, young adults like myself, and there were also a lot of children, lots of children there. Like a nice even mixture of all generations happening in this room. So moving into the sermon or the discussion, I can't remember which one they'd call them, there's of course a person at the front of the room. He was talking about community announcements, And then I was sort of distracted at the beginning, to tell you the truth, because I was a little bit overwhelmed with the fact of my knees being attacked by everyone near me. And also just, adapting to the environment. I was very much interested in analyzing all the people around me, just their facial expressions, what they looked like. I was just very, taking in this environment. And the thing that shook me out of it, like the trigger word, was as soon as I heard the word demon, all of a sudden my gaze from the others just went right to the front of the room. And essentially what the preacher, the man at the front, was saying was that, fear not, although the world as we know it today is controlled by demons, the second coming will fall soon, or that the grand coming, or whatever it is soon upon us. And I was just sitting there like, holy shit. I was like, what the fuck have I gotten myself into? I could not believe the words that were coming out of his mouth. And he started talking about politicians being corrupt by demons. He started talking about essentially the fall of the world and sin, and all of these very stereotypical religious concepts that the world is living in sin. So he carried on like that for some time, and then after that he remedied it with some, banal positive platitudes, and before I knew it, the sermon was over. And more or less, I'm not sure what all else he said after that, in once he moved into the positive aspects of things, because my mind was just so caught up on this whole, the demons. And what really got to me after he said that, after he was talking like that, was looking at the kids in the room. Like, I just felt, like my stomach hurt, like looking at these children being literally indoctrinated into the most absurd belief I've ever heard in my life. In this room, it was something else. It really was. It's very, very unsettling. But then after it was over, I mingled a bit with the lady I'd come with. I met her husband, and they introduced me to some other people. They introduced me to some of the older people in the community that were, I wasn't clear on why I was being introduced to them. But one of them, very creepy, again with the knees, the whole knee thing. If you ever do anything like what I've done and you're a female, for the love of God, don't show your knees. So they introduced me to one old man in particular, just, like, I know it's not right to judge people, but just, I don't know if you ever look at someone and they just look depraved. I don't know if you can relate to that. Like, I could be wrong, but just the look of this guy that I was talking to, it's like just that intuitive feeling where you're like, something about this person is just making me very, very uneasy. So that was that. Talked to a few more people, and then I left. And so afterwards, that's when I took to the internet. That's when I was like, okay, I gotta get some more information here. They gave me quite a few books. They gave me their Bible, and then they gave me some other like short-formed books summarizing their beliefs. So I read through some of the shorter-formed books, and I also took to the internet. And what I came to find was that Jehovah's Witnesses were created in the late 1800s, from which point one of the initial creators posited that the world would come to an end, that is, like, Armageddon would ensue in 1914. And then after Armageddon, basically, from what I understand, all of the evil people in the world will be killed, like they will die, and their spirits, there's no hell for Jehovah's Witnesses. They're not going to hell, they're just dead. But there's two classes of people. There's the anointed class and the grand crowd, I believe they're called. So after Armageddon, the anointed class is resurrected in heaven with God, and the grand crowd is also resurrected, but to live on earth in paradise on earth, not with God in the anointed class, but in paradise on earth. So essentially, when this prediction seemed to have failed, that the original creator of the Jehovah's Witnesses posited in 1914 for this to ensue, what the Jehovah's Witnesses later came to believe was that no, it did. Armageddon has been set in place. That is, there is demons now descended, or they don't come. I'm not sure where demons fit into this, actually, to tell you the truth, now that I'm thinking about it in hindsight. where did the demons come from? Just bad spirits, I guess, since they don't come from hell. Demons came from somewhere in 1914, and basically sort of infiltrated the world in subtle ways, such as to keep pedaling us slowly towards Armageddon and moving us closer to the point of the wiping out of the human race, and then of course later the resurrection of the anointed and the grand crowd. After I learned all of this and put it together with what I had seen in the Kingdom Hall, I felt like I had just visited a cult. I'm not sure what the exact definition of a cult is, but I feel that the Jehovah's Witnesses probably fit it. And actually the hardest thing that I felt about it, though, is that I felt a great deal of sympathy for all of the people who had come to believe this. Like, although I couldn't fully understand how people could come to have these beliefs, I still had sympathy for the fact that they are people who feel like they really need something to believe in, and they feel that they found it. And especially the woman that I met and who I went to the Kingdom Hall with, she was so sweet to me. She kept wanting to text me and follow up with me, spend time with me. I mean, that's part of being Jehovah's Witness, is recruiting people, so I know she was coming at it from that angle. But I definitely, like, in a very superficial way, I don't know if you've ever had, like, a superficial bond with someone where you just feel like this is a person I can easily connect with when you first meet them. And I had felt like that with her, so my guilt in trying to tell her that I was only there for research purposes and that I wouldn't be carrying on with her, it led me to procrastinate telling her. I just kept trying to retain a distant relationship. But she ended up, the Jehovah's Witnesses, I honestly can't even remember, I'm not even sure how they knew this, but they just kept coming to my house, to my residence house, looking for me, asking about what I was doing, and I eventually got to the point where my roommates were agitated with me. The goddamn Jehovah's Witnesses keep coming to the house, so I finally had to tell her. I mean, I should have done the right thing a lot sooner. I feel bad about that, but oh, I was morally torn. What a time that was. So that is my story. In the future, I'll tell you guys about my experience with Scientology, but I hope you enjoyed hearing about this, and I hope you learned something more about the Jehovah's Witnesses than what you hitherto knew.